"The DNA test results must be wrong," Michelle said, her voice artificially calm as she set down the envelope containing our son Tyler's paternity test results. We were sitting in our kitchen on a Sunday morning, Tyler playing with his trucks, in the living room, completely unaware that his 8-year-old world was about to shift fundamentally. The test showed what I had suspected for months. Tyler was not my biological son. The probability of paternity was 0.00%, meaning no genetic relationship existed between us, despite 8 years of me believing I was his father. Michelle's immediate response was to question the lab's accuracy, suggest we try a different testing company, and insist that the results were impossible given that I was the only man she had been with during the time Tyler was conceived. Her performance was convincing, the right mixture of shock, confusion, and indignation that might have persuaded someone who hadn't already spent 3 months quietly investigating the truth. What Michelle didn't realize was that I had run 2 previous DNA tests through different laboratories, both confirming the same result. More importantly, I had discovered text messages, emails, and photographs that revealed not only Tyler's true parentage, but the extent of her ongoing deception about the relationship that had produced him. I listened to her elaborate explanations about laboratory errors and statistical impossibilities while mentally reviewing the evidence. I had accumulated screenshots of her communications with Marcus Reed, her former coworker, dating back to before Tyler's birth, photos from her phone showing Marcus visiting our home during my business trips, financial records revealing regular payments to Marcus that she had hidden from our joint accounts. As Michelle continued insisting that the DNA results were somehow fraudulent, I realized that her immediate instinct was to lie rather than acknowledge a truth she assumed I couldn't possibly know. That choice would determine everything that happened next. My name is Robert Hayes, 41 years old, regional sales manager for a manufacturing company that requires frequent travel throughout the Southeast. I've built my career on attention to detail, relationship management, and the ability to read people accurately, skills that served me well professionally, but that I never expected to need in my personal life. For 8 years, I believed I was Tyler's biological father, and nothing about that has changed my love for him or my commitment to his well-being regardless of genetics. I met Michelle Carmen 9 years ago at a professional networking event in Atlanta. She was 26, working in human resources for a consulting firm, with an engaging personality and apparent ambition that attracted me immediately. Our relationship progressed quickly through dating, cohabitation, and marriage after 18 months. Together, Tyler was born 10 months after our wedding, and we settled into what appeared to be a stable family life, with traditional roles and shared responsibilities. The first few years of our marriage were genuinely happy. Michelle was an attentive mother and supportive partner, managing our household efficiently while continuing her HR career part-time. I traveled frequently for work, but tried to maintain consistent involvement in Tyler's life, coaching his soccer team and prioritizing family time whenever possible. By all external measures, we had built the kind of family life I had hoped for. The subtle changes began about 2 years ago when Michelle started working full-time again as Tyler entered 1st grade. She accepted a position with a larger firm that required longer hours and occasional travel, changes that seemed positive for her career development and our family's financial security. However, I noticed that Michelle became more secretive about her work, relationships, and social activities, often mentioning colleagues but being vague about specific interactions or events. More concerning was Michelle's increasing emotional distance from both Tyler and me. She became less engaged in family activities, more focused on her phone during evenings and weekends, and began making excuses to avoid family trips or social events that had previously been priorities. When I raised concerns about these changes, Michelle attributed them to work stress and suggested I was being overly sensitive. The first concrete warning sign appeared 6 months ago when I returned early from a business trip to find a man's jacket in our closet that I didn't recognize. When I asked Michelle about it, she claimed it belonged to her brother, who had visited while I was away. The explanation seemed plausible until I realized her brother lived in California and hadn't visited us in over 2 years. More troubling was Michelle's obvious discomfort when I pressed for details about the supposed visit. That incident prompted me to pay closer attention to inconsistencies in Michelle's explanations about her schedule and activities. I began noticing that her stories about working late or attending professional events often conflicted with information I could verify through social media or casual conversations with mutual acquaintances. These discrepancies weren't necessarily evidence of infidelity, but they established a pattern of deception that concerned me. The situation reached a turning point 3 months ago, when Tyler mentioned that Uncle Marcus had been visiting while I was traveling. Tyler described playing video games with Marcus, mentioned that Marcus sometimes stayed for dinner, and casually referred to activities they had done together. When I asked Michelle about Marcus, she initially claimed Tyler was confused, then admitted that a coworker occasionally stopped by to discuss projects, but insisted it was purely professional. That evening, I decided to investigate more. I discovered that Marcus Reed was indeed Michelle's coworker, a 34-year-old project manager who had joined her firm 18 months earlier. More significantly, a search of Michelle's social media connections revealed photos of Marcus at company events, including several where Michelle appeared with him in contexts that seemed more personal than professional. My suspicions intensified when I found Tyler's birth certificate while organizing insurance documents. For the first time, I noticed that Tyler had been born exactly 38 weeks after our wedding, not the 40 weeks Michelle had always claimed. This timing meant Tyler was conceived approximately 1 month before our wedding, during a period when Michelle had claimed to be too stressed about wedding planning to be intimate with me. The combination of timeline discrepancies, unexplained visitors, and Michelle's increasing secretiveness led me to a painful but necessary conclusion. I needed to determine whether Tyler was my biological son. The decision to pursue DNA testing wasn't driven by diminished love for Tyler, but by the need to understand the true nature of our family relationships and make informed decisions about our future. I arranged for discrete DNA testing through a reputable laboratory, submitting samples during a weekend when Michelle was visiting her sister. The results arrived 2 weeks later, confirming what I had begun to suspect. Tyler was not my biological child. The shock of this confirmation was followed immediately by the realization that I needed to understand the full scope of Michelle's deception before deciding how to proceed. Rather than confront Michelle immediately, I decided to gather comprehensive evidence about her relationship with Marcus and the circumstances surrounding Tyler's conception. My investigative approach was methodical and legal, focusing on information that was already accessible or that Michelle had shared openly. Through careful observation and discreet inquiries, I learned that Marcus had been a frequent visitor to our home during my business trips over the past year. Neighbors confirmed seeing his car in our driveway on multiple occasions, often overnight. More damaging was my discovery of text message records showing regular communication between Michelle and Marcus dating back nearly 2 years, including messages with romantic undertones and discussions about maintaining secrecy. The financial investigation revealed that Michelle had been making regular cash payments to Marcus, ostensibly for household help, but actually representing what appeared to be support payments. She had concealed these transactions by using cash advances from credit cards that I wasn't monitoring regularly. The amounts were significant, approximately $800 per month for the past 18 months. Most conclusively, I found photographs on Michelle's phone showing Marcus with Tyler in various family settings, including images that were clearly taken in our home during my absences. These photos showed a comfortable familiarity between Marcus and Tyler that suggested an ongoing relationship rather than casual acquaintance. To confirm Tyler's actual paternity, I obtained a DNA sample from Marcus's through a coffee cup he discarded after visiting our home one afternoon when he thought I was traveling. The subsequent paternity test confirmed that Marcus was Tyler's biological father with 99.97% probability. Armed with this information, I consulted with Patricia Williams, a family law attorney specializing in paternity and custody cases. Patricia advised me that regardless of biological paternity, I had legal rights and responsibilities as Tyler's presumed father under state law. Having been married to Michelle at the time of his birth and having acted as his father for 8 years, the most important consideration is Tyler's welfare, Patricia emphasized. Biology doesn't negate the legal and emotional relationship you've established with him. The question is how to address the deception while protecting his interests. We developed a strategy that would prioritize Tyler's emotional security while addressing Michelle's fraud and establishing appropriate long-term arrangements. The approach involved presenting Michelle with the evidence I had gathered, while offering her the opportunity to explain her actions and cooperate in developing a plan that served Tyler's best interests. The confrontation came when Michelle's own DNA test results arrived, providing her with the opportunity to acknowledge the truth voluntarily before I revealed what I already knew. Her decision to deny the results and insist on laboratory error demonstrated that she was committed to maintaining her deception regardless of evidence. After listening to Michelle's elaborate explanations about testing errors, I calmly retrieved a folder from my desk containing copies of all the documentation I had gathered. I placed it on the kitchen table between us and opened it to reveal the text message screenshots, financial records, photographs, and the results from both additional DNA tests I had conducted. "Michelle, I've known about Marcus for 3 months," I said quietly. "I know he's Tyler's biological father. I know he's been visiting our home during my trips. I know you've been supporting him financially with money from our accounts. And I know this relationship began before Tyler was conceived." Her reaction was immediate and dramatic. The confident denials transformed into panic as she realized the extent of my knowledge and preparation. She attempted various explanations. The relationship with Marcus was recent. Tyler's paternity was uncertain. The financial support was for legitimate expenses. Each explanation contradicted the documented evidence I had gathered. "The question now," I continued, "is how we handled this situation in a way that protects Tyler from adult mistakes and ensures his continued stability and happiness." The conversation that followed was difficult but necessary. Michelle gradually acknowledged the affair, Tyler's true paternity, and her deception about the relationship's duration and nature. She expressed genuine remorse about the lies while attempting to justify her actions, based on confusion about Tyler's paternity and uncertainty about our marriage's future. More importantly, we began discussing practical arrangements for Tyler's care and our family's future. Despite the betrayal, my primary concern was ensuring that Tyler's life remained as stable as possible, while the adults in his life addressed the consequences of their choices. Over the following weeks, we worked with Patricia to develop a custody arrangement that prioritized Tyler's emotional security. Although I was not his biological father, I had established legal and emotional paternity through 8 years of active parenting. Michelle agreed that disrupting this relationship would harm Tyler more than benefit him, particularly since Marcus had shown no interest in active fatherhood despite his financial obligations. The final arrangement granted me primary custody of Tyler, with Michelle receiving standard visitation rights. Marcus was required to provide appropriate child support, but was not granted parental rights unless Tyler specifically requested a relationship in the future. Most importantly, we agreed to maintain Tyler's current living situation, school enrollment, and social connections to minimize disruption during the family transition. Michelle and I divorced 6 months later, with the proceedings focused on practical arrangements rather than assigning blame or seeking vindication. She relocated to a nearby apartment, allowing regular contact with Tyler while creating space for both of us to rebuild our lives independently. The most challenging aspect of the situation was deciding how much Tyler should know about his biological parentage. Child psychologist Dr. Rebecca Martinez advised that Tyler was too young to understand the complexities of adult relationships, but old enough to be confused by sudden changes in family structure. We agreed to provide age-appropriate explanations that emphasized the stability of his relationship with me, while acknowledging that families sometimes change in ways that aren't anyone's fault. 2 years later, Tyler continues to thrive in his school and social activities, maintaining loving relationships with both Michelle and me despite our changed family structure. He occasionally asks questions about why his parents live separately, but he hasn't expressed confusion about his identity or family relationships. His relationship with me remains as strong as ever, built on 8 years of shared experiences rather than genetic connections. Michelle has rebuilt her life and career while maintaining appropriate boundaries regarding Tyler's care and our co-parenting relationship. She eventually acknowledged that her deception had been driven by fear and poor judgment rather than malicious intent, though she accepted full responsibility for the consequences of her choices. Marcus remains financially responsible for Tyler's support, but has chosen not to pursue an active parental relationship. This arrangement suits everyone involved, particularly Tyler, who has never known Marcus as anything other than an occasional family acquaintance. Looking back on the experience, I recognize that discovering Tyler's true parentage was less devastating than discovering Michelle's willingness to maintain elaborate deceptions, even when confronted with irrefutable evidence. The biological relationship was less important than the trust that had been violated and the complex web of lies that had surrounded our family life. My wife lied about our son's DNA. She had no idea what I'd already found out, not just about Tyler's paternity, but about the systematic deception that had characterized our relationship for years. The DNA test wasn't a revelation, but a confirmation of truth I had already established through careful investigation and documentation. The most valuable outcome wasn't exposing Michelle's lies, but establishing a family structure based on honesty and Tyler's best interests rather than biological connections or adult convenience. Today, as Tyler's father in every meaningful sense, I'm grateful that love and commitment prove more durable than genetic relationships. When children's welfare is truly the priority, the experience reinforced that parenting is defined by daily care, emotional investment, and unwavering commitment rather than biological accident. Tyler will always be my son regardless of DNA, and our relationship continues to grow stronger through honest communication and mutual respect. Foundations that prove more reliable than any genetic connection.